All right, let's go ahead and get to our two-step equations. We have a minus 15, so we add 15 to both sides. Again, hopefully you're learning this stuff. These two are different, so we subtract. 15 is bigger, so it should be positive. Then we divide by 6 on both sides, getting the answer of x equals 2. Same thing here, doesn't matter about the 2x. We follow what we've been trained to do. Just make sure you bring down the 2x as negative because it is negative. These two are the same, so we add them, but it would be negative because everything here is negative. From there, you go ahead and divide by your negative 2, getting the answer of x equals 7. Here, 4 minus 3 is 1x, but we don't write the 1x. That's part of what I wanted to do here. You don't write the 1, otherwise everything goes kind of silly. But again, 4x minus 3x is 1x, but remember we don't write the 1 because that is 1x. Getting x minus 5 equals negative 10. And then from there we go ahead and add 5 to both sides, getting x is, those are different, so we subtract. 10 is bigger, so it'll be negative 5. 3x minus x is 2x. The 6 comes down, the negative 2 comes down. From there you subtract 6 from both sides, getting 2x, again both of these are the same, equals negative 8. You then divide by 2, getting x is equal to negative 4. Once again, making sure you're careful to copy this stuff. You don't want to miss any points just for not, trying to be slick or trying to skip over something. Don't take any shortcuts that could possibly hurt you and cost you points, which again, for those of you who are doing it on a regular basis, it really won't help to lose those points because you don't get them back. 6x minus 4, 9x plus 5. Again, we're going to move the smaller x over to the larger x. Be sure you bring down negative 4. From there, we need to move the 5 by subtracting it. Notice both of these are both negative and they work together, making negative 9. And then from there, we divide both sides by 3, getting our final answer of negative 3. Here, 2 and 6. 2 is smaller, so we're going to move the 2 because remember, whenever they're on different sides, we move the smaller one. That is a regular 4 coming down. 6 minus 2 is 4x. 12 comes down. Now we move our 12 by subtracting it. These two are different, so we subtract, and 12 is bigger, so it's negative. Again, that was part of what we did, I guess, when the quarter started. Negative 8 divided by 4 is your negative 2, and that is your answer. So again, just keeping in mind, these three levels, 1, 2, and 3, are really what you need to make sure you're trying to get, because you have to know two-step equations. You should know how to combine like terms, and you definitely need to be able to work with variables on both sides. After that, just make sure you remember that you multiply by the fractional number on the bottom. Both of these numbers go away, bringing down 5x and 30. Divide by 5 now to get the answer of x equals 6. In this case, I guess I just flipped over the 5 and the 3. I guess I got kind of bored. 5 goes on the bottom, so both of these two things go away, bringing down 3x equals 45. You then divide by 3 on both sides, getting x equals, and if you don't know what 45 divided by 3 is, that's why we work on doing this. 3 goes into 4 one time with 1 left over. 3 goes into 15 5 times. Remember, you don't need to finish it. You just care about that number, and you know that 5 times 3 is 15, so there's no need to go all the way down to 0 there. But that's it. Don't forget that 5 and 3 both meet at 15, so we multiply by 15. 15 divided by 5 is 3. That's where that comes from. 15 divided by 3 is 5. That's where that comes from. 3 times 1 is 3x. 5 times 2 is 10. 15 times 2 is 30. Subtract your 10, subtract your 10. Divide by 3, divide by 3. And there we go. 5 and 2 both meet at, at 10. Getting ahead of myself here. They both meet at 10. 5 wouldn't work because 2 doesn't divide into 5. But again, 10 divided by 2 turns into 5. And 10 divided by 5 turns into 2. That makes 15x. That makes 8. That makes 10. Just don't, a lot of people I'm seeing that are making small mistakes, they have these two numbers, but they keep forgetting to multiply that third number by the same thing. But from there, you go ahead and work it out the same way as we have on all of our two-step equations, which is why they're important. By dividing by 15 and doing all the other stuff we're doing, getting that answer of 2 over 15. And then the last one, parentheses first. 11 minus 1 is 10. And if you don't know that 10 times 10 is 100, you better get it down. 10 times 10 is 100. 10 $10 bills is $100. Either way, 10 squared is 100. And if you cut 100 into 4 pieces, or if you cut $1 into 4 pieces, you have 4 quarters. So that would be 25 cents each. I just messed up and did 25 divided by 2. I'm sorry. That was stupid on my part. I got ahead of myself a little bit. Either way, 305 divided by 2. This one's important, especially on the long division part, for those of you who do the long division, because 2 goes into 3 once with 1 left over. The thing is, 2 goes into 10 5 times, which leaves 0. And so that usually throws people off, but you still have a number to bring down. And so that you're actually saying, I shouldn't even done 305. I'm really messing up today. 2 goes into 5. Let's just go ahead and finish it off. 2 goes into 5 twice with 1 left over. And here's what you do with that 1. You put it over that 2. So it'd be 152.5 because it's 1 out of whatever we were dividing by, which is 2. I'm really screwing up on this thing. I'm sorry. Either way, if you did it the other way, you would say 2 goes into 3 once with 1 left over. 2 goes into 10 5 times with 0 left over. 2 goes into 5 twice with 1 left over out of 2. Notice how that denominator stays right there. Good experience. I didn't mean to do that to you, but apologies. Just make sure you understood the process of moving those things in there. Now on the bell ringer that we would initially have done, this is a question that popped up, and it's just making sure you understand the difference between side, angle, side, or neither. In this case, really to me, the easiest way to do it is to count the number. Are there 2 sides? Are there 3 sides? Are there 2 angles, etc.? In this case, we have 2 sides. So if anything, it should be side, angle, side. The trick is, are these 2 sides meeting at the angle, which they are, so it is side, angle, side. Again, these 2 sides, I don't need to do both triangles, just one. These 2 sides meet at that angle, which means that that is the what we call the included angle, and so it works. What about this one? We have 2 sides, so it's not side, side. It should be side, angle, side, but let's check. Do these 2 sides meet at that angle? And yes, they do, so it is side, angle, side. Looking at the next one, it doesn't work like that, because notice you have 2 angles, and when you look at side, or side, angle, side, neither one of these has 2 A's, which means that this has to be neither. And then of course, looking at this, you have all 3 sides marked, and so we hopefully understand that that would be side, side to wrap that up. So what we're here for today is pretty much to wrap up the 3 things that we're talking about here. Over the past 2 days, we've been exposed to 2 ways to prove triangles congruent. The first one's called side, side. The second one's called side, angle, side. Although we've worked on identifying them, another focus of the past lessons was pretty much about the focus of the format on the proofs. Side, side is pretty straightforward. Again, you have everything marked. But when you looked at side, angle, side, we talked about having an included angle. We talked about how the included angle is the angle between the 2 marked sides, because you're saying side, angle, side, and the angle is in between the 2 sides. So looking at the figure below, it's important to recognize out of these 2 pictures, one of these, the angle is not included. Actually, on both of them, the angle is not included, because if it was included here, these 2 sides lead to this location, not that location. These 2 sides lead to this location, not that location. And so it's important that you start seeing that, because if you don't, it's going to cause you issues later on. But part of this working with this material is just making sure to work with what's there and avoid making something out to be more than what it is. So in today's method, angle, side, angle, it's important to understand that the side is also what we call included. How do I know? Because there's 2 angles with a side in between. And as it says here, the side is between the 2 angles. Again, none of what we see in these lessons will be put there to trick you on purpose. Just make sure you're aware when you get to geometry, there will be problems that are going to be put there to trick you. Just you have to be aware of that when you get to geometry, that again there will be problems that are trick you. Just do your best to learn what these methods look like so you can minimize the chances of what's happening. So looking at the work for today, similar pictures, but again different things. We're going to look at statement and a reason. I'm going to go over here. I think this is on the back side of your sheet. Outside of that, we're looking at GJ congruent to GM. That's given. That's already marked, so it's there. Second one is angle J is congruent to angle M. That's also given. So J, I'll mark with M there. And then the last is JGK. The angle is congruent to MGK, the angle. And again, that is also given. So JGK, which is this, I have to use 2 marks because I already used 1. Congruent to MGK, again, I gotta use 2 marks because I already used 1. The 2's are congruent to the 2's, the 1's are congruent to the 1's. And when you look at this, you have 2 angles with a side directly between them. And we did say ASA, which means angles on the outside and a side sitting in the middle, which we have 2 angles here with a side, 2 angles here with a side, which means we can say MKG congruent to triangle JKG because of angle, side, angle. Make sure you don't say side, angle, side. Make sure you don't say side, side, side. You've got to make sure you pick the right one. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to lose points on that for giving a faulty reason. And you don't want to lose points for something that's simple, that's small. Again, statements, reasons. Number 1, angle B is congruent to angle D. That's given. So B is congruent to D. That's a given there. I'll just go ahead and mark those so we can see it. 2 is angle BCA is congruent to angle DCE. That is also given. So BCA would be this angle. That would be 2 because that was on 1. And DCE is this one. So now we've got 2 angles. And then number 3 is BC congruent to DC. Let's see, BC is this, DC is that one. And notice once again, in both triangles, you've got 2 angles with the side in between, 2 angles with the side in between, which means we have enough to say, sorry, that should be 4 with a line going there. Triangle ACB is congruent to triangle ECD. And the reason is angle, side, angle, because we have 2 angles with a side in between it. So again, pause that, replay that if you need to, but here's the thing you need to understand. I'm not going to give you a third example, but I do want to point out that the problem we just worked out will definitely look different when you see it officially. So looking at it one more time, the first thing you'll notice is that they won't tell you that B is congruent to D. Instead, they'll say they're right angles. Well, if they're right angles, that means that both of them are 90 degrees, which means that right angles are, you know, the same. So the game with proofs, and remember I did call it a game, is that if B and D are right angles, it doesn't mean that you've proved them congruent. You've just said they're right angles. So what you'll have to do is first off say that B and D are both right angles, and then you'll have to say that B is congruent to D because all right angles are congruent. So that would actually be 2 steps. So you would actually have to say, let's say this is step 3. You would have to say angle B congruent to angle D, and that would be, no, I'm sorry. Let me do this again. You have to say in number 3, angle B and angle D are RT for right angles, and that's how you could write angles, and that would be given. And then 4, you would say angle B congruent to angle D, and the reason would be all right angles are congruent. And so it's a game. That's why I said that I'm not trying to take you to this level yet, but I want you to be aware that it won't always be just this is congruent, that's congruent, and you're done. They're actually going to make you do a little bit of work. And so whenever they start giving you those terms and they start talking about what things are, make sure you understand what they mean, because those things are going to come in handy later on. They're also not going to tell you that BCA is congruent to ECD, because we understand vertical angles. And one thing we know about vertical angles is that you can use it as your own reason. So what you would do is, in this picture, you would recognize that these 2 things are vertical. So you would say angle BCA is congruent to angle ECD, not because it was given, but because they are vertical angles, and vertical angles are congruent. And so there's different things you're going to have to do there. Again, officially you would just say that those 2 things are the same because vertical angles are congruent, and that would be where you'd have to go with it. So just be careful. I think those were 2 things you had to fill in on the bottom of your sheet, so be careful. Make sure you get those points. But I do hope you understand the importance of learning the basics and fundamentals now. The work that we've done this whole quarter has introduced you to a lot of important concepts. If you made the most of this quarter, you should be able to work your way through the lessons. If not, then you might find yourself going through the struggle and frustration that we try to let you avoid now. And that struggle and frustration usually is an issue. So if you're going to not make the most of it now, just make sure when you get to that class that you aren't stubborn, that you don't go trying to fight everything they ask you to do, because when that happens, you usually end up failing a class and having to take it over. But outside of that, I will see you all tomorrow, and have a good day.